Good evening, everyone. Broadcasting live from our new location, our new monastery. July 21st. Sorry about the lighting. We'll try to get the light set up. But here we are. This is Robin is here. Robin. And Eric is here, but he's downstairs. So I noticed that I think we've gone through all the quotes. Today's quote is the same quote as last year. I'm pretty sure we've now done a full year of quotes. I don't think we're gonna do them again, which means we need a new source. You have to think about it a bit, but I was thinking of maybe going through this book. It's a big one. That'll take us a while to get through. The Numerical Discourses of the Buddha. We can just start tonight, no? I know we could just go through from beginning to end. If it works, it's good because it's got brief, simple lists of teachings, and then we can take those lists and expand upon them. So it gives me something to talk about. Goes from the Book of Ones to the Book of Twos and Threes and Fours, all the way up to the Book of what does it say? Book of More Than Tens, I think, is the last one. Book of Tens. Anyway, there's a lot of them. So the first 10 discourses, the first 10 passages from the Anguttara Nikaya. The Numerical Discourses is all the Buddha times that the Buddha gave lists of things by number. Said 10 of this, 5 of this, 2 of this, 4 of this, 1 of this. They put them together and created a book out of them. Or it wasn't a book in the beginning, but eventually became a book, a catalog of these teachings in order of the number of things. So the first 10 are in regards to the obsession of the mind. This is Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. This is where he spent most of his life, and not most, but more than any other place. He spent in Savatthi in Jeta's Grove. So actually, unless otherwise specified, that's where it's understood that all the discourses in this book took place. Some of them elsewhere, but if not specified, then in Savatthi. There the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus. Bhikkhus, Venerable Sir, those Blessed Ones replied. The Blessed One said this. We need the Pali as well, no? It's too good with that. It's too good to go without. Nahang bhikkhave. Nahang bhikkhave anyang ekarupampi. I don't see any other any other rupa, any other form. Samnupasami, I don't see any other form that so obsesses the mind. Chittang pariyadaya tittati. Literally would sort of surrounds and becomes fixed in, consumes and becomes fixed in the mind of a man, other than the form of a woman. See that one coming? It's the one form that a man obsesses over. It's the form of a woman. Goes without saying, this is referring to a heterosexual man. Homosexual man, well, the form of a man, because Sutta number 6 says, Nahang bhikkhuvyan yang ekarupampi samanupasami yang evang itya titang parayadaya titati. I see no form that completely encompasses and becomes fixed in the mind of a woman in the form of a man. The form of a woman obsesses the mind of a man. The form of a man obsesses the mind of a woman. And Sutta number 2, 3, and 4 are the same, but with a different sense. So Sutta number 2 is, I don't see any other sound that obsesses a man's mind more than the sound of a woman. Same goes for the sound of a man. It obsesses the mind of a woman. Sex. Oh, we're talking about gender and sex. It's an interesting phenomenon, because it doesn't actually, if you think about it, it doesn't actually make much sense. Why do we have 2 genders? Why not 3? Why not 4? I mean, if you look at the evolution of the physical evolution of a species, it makes some sense. But just philosophically, there's no reason for us to have 2 genders. It's just sort of happened that way. And as a result, we've created this dichotomy, You look at one person, you see them as a man. You look at someone else, you see them as a woman. It drives us crazy when we're not sure whether someone is a man or a woman. We have to spend some time, and an ordinary individual has to find an answer. Is that a man or a woman? Because we're trained, we are obsessed with gender, obsessed with sex. And it's become quite interesting in modern times, where we started to break down the gender barriers. I read something, I think it's a big deal now, about transgendered people being able to use whichever washroom they like. Anyone being able to use whichever washroom they like. The only point being that it's an issue that is in people's minds. What's interesting about this teaching, I think, leaps out of the page at me, is the concept of the nimitta. Because no one is masculine, or no one is a man or a woman. It's not real. But we cultivate, or we give rise to the sign, the nimitta, of a man or a woman. You see someone, one of the signs, it's not sign is a bad word, it's what nimitta means, but a nimitta is the concept of something. When you look at a cloud and it looks like a horse. And there's no horse in the cloud, but at some point the cloud forms just right so that you give rise to the nimitta of a horse, the sign of a horse, or the concept of the horse. Nothing in the cloud inherently that is a horse. When you look at my hand, what do you see? You see a fist, right? If I ask you what this is, you say this is a fist. But you watch closely, and if I slowly unclench my fist, the fist disappears. The sign disappears. The same as it happens with gendering. When someone changes their gender, or when someone is transgendered, what gender are they? So what's interesting for a meditator is the reality that these things are all in the mind. They don't really exist. This is why the Buddha said, Nanimita gahi nanubhyanjana gahi. A meditator should not grasp the signs or the particulars. When you see a man or you see a woman, it should be seeing. You don't actually see a man. You see light. You see light touching your eye. That's what you see. The man, the woman, that's the sign or the signal that you take out of it. If it's just seeing, it's just seeing. And the whole man, woman doesn't register, doesn't have any meaning for you. And as a result, none of the likes or dislikes, the partialities. Because you can't cling to reality. You can't. If you see something as it is, there's no response of desire or aversion. It's not in the nature of the process. So we cling to our concept. We cling to the idea that something is good or something is bad. Something brings you pleasure, or something is positive. Even pleasure. When you experience pleasure as it is, it's an experience. It arises and ceases. But when you grasp at the idea that this is an experience of an enjoyable experience or something, you cling to ideas. You don't cling to the reality. Once you see it really as it is, without man or woman, there's no problem. But that's not quite what this is about. What this is talking about is the intents. The Buddha is calling attention to, focusing on the intense attachment that is sexual desire, sensual desire. No, sexual desire. A desire for the opposite gender, and that sort of points to the Buddhist conception of gender. That it's something that we've really created for the express purpose of enjoyment. You know, what better way to enjoy the things that you like than to provide them to each other, right? Pair off, become the source of the enjoyment for each other. I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. I'll please you if you please me. That's what sex is. It allows us to please each other, to feed each other's addictions directly. I can be your addiction. You be mine, I'll be yours. Right? That's basically what it's saying. We'll be each other's addiction. So enticing as a result. As a result, we become enslaved by it. Really enslaved. I mean, why are we attached? Why? Of all the things that you could enjoy, why would the human body be one? Something enjoyable. It's actually quite disgusting. Full of pus and blood and urine and feces and bones and flesh. There's nothing beautiful in the human body. The skin smells, the hair smells. It leaks out of 9 different holes. Earwax, snot, spit, urine, feces. That's the reality. But because of our clever use of the human body to feed our addictions, we think of the body as something beautiful. It's beautiful because we know what it will bring us. It will bring us what we want, what we've come to perceive as pleasurable. good, satisfying, but it's not. Right? So that's our some sort of teaching for the evening. Let's see if we have questions. I'm pretty sure we do. What is the Arahant Sutta? Is it available online? I think there's more than one, actually. But I'm not really, I'm not really sure about that question. I think you have to be a little more specific about why that's important to you. I kind of like to focus on meditative questions rather than just finding suttas for people. I know I refused to answer a question earlier and somebody called me out on it. So it's my choice. I don't have to answer any of your questions. What is the basic antidote or way to deal with desire and cravings directed towards human? To deal with desires? Well, have you read my booklet on how to meditate? That's where I would start. You read it and put it into practice. It's my claim that it will help you to deal with desires and cravings. I don't quite understand directed toward human, but I think that's the answer. My partner wants to date other people. Well, there you go. Tonight was for you. Because she knows I plan to be ordained. It's funny. Sorry, it's not funny. I apologize. It's unfortunate. It's against my wishes because I have strong attachments. She would like to sleep with me until ordination, or finding a new boyfriend, whichever comes first. Do I end it? Oh dear. Well, I would probably suggest you become comfortable being celibate before you ordain, because ordination is about being celibate. It's not a magic trick that you become a monk and suddenly poof, you're celibate. I know you should be allowed to ordain. You don't have to become enlightened before you ordain, but going from worrying about your partner seeing other people to boom, I'm a monk. I don't know. I would sort of resolve in your mind first the idea that sex is not what you're looking for. Now, it may even be that way already, and you're just not able to control it. But at any rate, it should be to the point, at least, where you're okay with your partner going to find pleasure in other places. Elaine, we tried to put a question mark in front. Oh, here, JDM is explaining. But, okay, her question stands. How much effort is reasonable to exert to avoid giving in to the craving? It shouldn't be any effort, really. It should be effortless at its best. But it's a struggle, and until you reach that point, you have to struggle with it. But the struggle isn't out of lack of effort. It's because you're imbalanced in the mind through desire, but also through laziness and either strong concentration or strong effort. Your mind is not balanced. Try to balance the faculties, but balance them using mindfulness. Once your mind is balanced, you'll find it effortless. It's not about effort, it's about wisdom, it's about seeing clearly. You don't have to fight against your attachments, you just have to see them clearly. And that's the problem, is no amount of effort is going to fix your problems. It's mindfulness. Once you're mindful, it just slips away. Then you have to do it again, and you have to repeat. I guess the best way to understand true effort is the effort to do it again and again and again, to be mindful again and again and again. That's real effort, and that's tough. It's a real challenge. So it's not about how much effort, it's about how consistently mindful you are. That's the effort. Effort to do it again. Every time I do sitting meditation, I have great difficulty feeling the rise and fall of the abdomen. I've been practicing for many months. I note tension, or pain. How long should my attention be focused on the abdomen, even when there is no rise and fall? Also, will this change through patience? It should. I know some teachers tell you, well, if you can't find the rising and falling, even my teacher says just say sitting. You can say sitting instead. But if you're not feeling the rise and fall, sometimes you're obsessing over it. I mean, that's why it's such a great object, is because it shows you your neuroses and your mental the problems that you have, because you obsess over it, or there's something blocking you, something in your way, like stress or tension. If you can't feel the stomach, try putting your hand there. If you really can't feel it, try lying on your back. If you lie on your back, I don't think that there's anyone who won't be able to feel the stomach. And then you'll get a sense that, oh yes, in a natural state, that's how we breathe. We breathe, the stomach expands. It's just when we sit up, because we've cultivated certain characteristics during the time that we're sitting up. You know, when you're lying down, your mind thinks relax. When you sit up, your mind thinks get ready. You know, get ready to work, get ready to fight, get ready to speak, get ready to walk. You become tense. So it's a matter of changing that habit so that sitting is a time when you can be relaxed. That's just, you know, growing pains, or not growing pains, but say pain associated with the struggle associated with training. So you've been practicing for many months. I mean, having difficulty in meditation is par for the course. It's meant to be difficult. It's not just that you have to be difficult. It's meant to be. It's meant to challenge you. So if it's just challenging and it's not always there, or it's not constant, well, bingo, that's reality. If you really never experience the rising and falling, well, then you have to kind of work at it. But if it's just difficult, welcome to the game. How are we doing? That's all for our questions today. Yeah, our European members have some difficulty because it's already early morning in Europe. Good time to get up and do meditation, but not if you have to work the next day, I suppose, or work that day. Still, you could go to sleep early and wake up early. And I know it's difficult, but not sure what else we could do. Suppose we did it earlier here than people on the west coast of America. I mean, the unfortunate reality is that most of our followers are in America. We get, you know, I have many students in Europe, but I'm not sure if that's true. The majority of viewers on YouTube, that's all I can say. But like, look at although this is a time thing, right? We should look at that actually. Which country and what region we have the most members coming on here and meditating? Because of course right now it's from America, but you look at these peaks. We peak around 1300 UTC and 20 UTC. 2000. Anyway, this is the time we're doing it now. If we could find a way to do. This is what we're doing. Is it convenient to try to stay in a kind of similar state as the one you are in meditation during your whole day as much as you can, and this state will show up from meditation? There's no state. I mean, it's important to be careful about the word state, because that's, I mean, it's a buzzword for other types of meditation. And so if you're thinking in terms of meditative state, chances are you're still conceiving of meditation as something other than what this meditation is. Because this meditation, you shouldn't feel specifically like you're in a state. You will feel quite different, but it won't be a feeling, it'll be a realization that your mind is clearer. That's all. Less judgmental is really the feeling. The only feeling you should get is a feeling that you're less judgmental. It's just from observing yourself, not judging, not reacting as strongly or as often. But putting that aside, I don't know the word convenient, but it's important to try and cultivate non-judgmental awareness outside of meditation as well. So absolutely, when you're living your life, if someone yells at you, you should be mindful hearing. If you get upset at something, you say upset. If you're angry, you should say angry. When you're walking, you should say walking. It's quite useful. Let's not say important, but it's important. But more importantly, let's say useful. It's useful in terms of your spiritual growth. It'll help very much in progressing and learning to see things as they are if you keep it continuous throughout the day. Oh, here's a question again, missing the cue, missing the question mark. If someone were to declare bankruptcy, can they then become a monk? I don't know. I suppose if you've declared bankruptcy and gone through with it and you no longer owe any money, I don't know how that works. But if you no longer owe any money, then yes, I think it's, if you've settled it before you become a monk. Problem is, it might be considered stealing, and you might have to be careful. It's sort of a bad karma to declare bankruptcy, I would say. I mean, you could argue it anyway. You declare bankruptcy means you're not willing to pay your debt. You've taken something that you promised to give back, and you're not giving it back, which is kind of stealing. I know it's, modern times it's all twisted around, but technically it is stealing. You did borrow it with the promise to give it back, and once you don't give it back intentionally, some people would call that stealing. So I don't know that bankruptcy is such a good idea. Unfortunately, I know. I mean, honestly, so many people are in debt for such silly things nowadays. It's unfortunate. But don't go into debt. That's the, sometimes you can't avoid it. It's unfortunate. Which is interesting, the question. Should a Buddhist go into debt? Would be an interesting question. I mean, obviously everyone should avoid going into debt. But what does it mean to go into debt? Is it a problem? It's a complication. I mean, going into debt obviously is an unwanted complication. And from a Buddhist point of view, I think that's magnified, because we try to live our lives as simply as possible. I would imagine you could argue for the acceptance of an unpleasant state rather than going into debt. For this sort of reason, I mean, you end up with a promise to do something for someone, i.e. give money back, repay someone, but That's a promise that you're making, and that's promises are problematic. I guess just the general point that it's a complication that should be avoided. But bankruptcy is the part that's problematic. The paying it back because you promised. How do you feel about the meditation practiced in Thai forest tradition of Ajahn Mun? I don't know. I don't know too much about it. I'm not too keen on Ajahn Mun. I mean, obviously a very powerful person. But based on his autobiography, it's not that impressive because he says some wacky things in this book. His biography, written by a monk who is well known for the crazy things, the controversial nature. So the monk who wrote this biography, Ajahn Mun, has some fairly controversial things, activities. He wrote an op-ed, scathing op-ed in one of the Thai newspapers, criticizing the then prime minister, who a lot of people criticized, but doesn't seem like what an enlightened monk would do. He collected gold for the Thai government, which I think his followers are still doing to this day, which again seems not quite like what an enlightened monk would do. Things like that. And then he wrote this book saying that Ajahn Mun talked to the Buddha and talked to arahants who had already passed into parinibbana, which is really quite absurd. But people argue, we try to explain in a way, just not all that impressive to me. What's impressive is, of course, their forest practice. But I think people over-romanticize that. And yeah, great, they could live in the forest. What big deal, I lived in the forest. It's actually not that impressive. These monks who go traveling, it's so romantic, the idea of this monk taking just his robes and bowl and going, yeah, it's nice. But it's easy to escape yourself. The people have been doing that for centuries, and none of them became enlightened. Since time immemorial, monkeys do it. Monkeys live in the forest. They're not enlightened. Which is kind of a facetious sort of thing to say, but it does raise a good point that just because you're off in the forest living a simple life, there's a power to it, but it's not exactly the power of enlightenment. You ever read the book Mosquito Coast? This guy tries to go off and live in nature, and nature can be cruel and it can drive you crazy if you don't have the right path. So I can't make any definitive statements about Ajahn Mun, but I can make definitive statements about some of the things that have been written about him and about the person who wrote them. That's about it. I'm not all that interested. As I say, I normally try to refrain from talking about other traditions, simply for the main reason that I don't know too much about anything else but what I do. And of course, there's the other reason, is that it gets me in endless amounts of trouble with those who do. Overall, the practice of meditation has had great benefit on my life. The other day, I found myself confronted. Something that annoyed me. What shocked me is how sensitive I am to the object of frustration. I felt my mind shocked by great frustration and anger. Is this expected? Yes. See, because part of meditation is opening your heart. Right? We spend a great deal of our time protecting ourselves, which is reasonable. But our protection is to avoid and to react and to quickly try and escape problems. Suppose someone comes to you with something, they say something that ticks you off. Well, you might get angry, but then quickly you try and smooth things over with them. If they're your friend or your family member, you avoid the situation rather than really accepting the fact that this made you angry. We do that because we're not normally equipped to deal with the anger. When you practice meditation, you end all that. If someone makes you angry, you stay with the anger. You don't try and avoid it and laugh it off, change the subject. Find some way to avoid the conflict. You actually examine and study the conflict and learn to let go. It's a much more profound sort of solution to your problems, but as a result, it's much more, you know what I mean? It's dangerous in the sense that it forces you to confront the emotions, and they can be quite strong emotions. Right? If someone comes to you, says something mean and nasty, and you get upset inside, but immediately you find a way to joke or laugh it off, you've avoided the problem, you avoided the situation, you avoided how this makes you feel. So do that continuously, begin to approach reality, and you'll start to cultivate this sort of acceptance of the way things are. And problem is, in the beginning, the way things are is quite unpleasant. All of these emotions inside then have a greater opportunity to arise and to remain. There's a danger of meditation, but it's not meditation, it's not the fault of the meditation, it's the fault of our avoiding and building up these reactions without actually dealing with them. Every time it comes up, we get upset about it. The upset is there, but we avoid it, find a way to not have to deal with it. And so it builds up and builds up and builds up. It doesn't solve the problem. And then eventually you do break down, and it does overwhelm you. But then right away, until either, well, it can happen. People can just be ordinary people, are in ordinary, normal people. Most people are able to deal with these things sort of imperfectly, but to the extent that they can live their lives. Some people, it gets to an extreme that they decide to come and practice meditation or find another solution, take drugs, alcohol, take medication. How many people are taking psychoactive drugs in this world? I got an email today. Should I go into it? Maybe I shouldn't even go into it. Robin read the email exchange. Someone called me narrow-minded, closed-minded, because again, it's this issue of not accepting meditators for our courses if they're taking psychoactive drugs. I guess this is my only venue. I have to vent here, right? If I'm not going to talk about it here, where am I going to talk about it? But I've talked about it before, so let's not harp on this. But talking with Robin about it, I am set on this idea of not allowing this. There's two reasons. I mean, our organization is not equipped to deal with the liability of someone who has serious mental issues. So that's sort of the line that we're going with. But from my point of view, it's deeper than that. First of all, there's the fact that these drugs are affecting your mind. They're affecting your brain anyway, affecting your brain chemistry. But it's not really that will get in the way. And it's the intention to medicate yourself, the intention to avoid the problem. And this speaks to your question, because it's that very intention that we're trying to change. So if you're not able to look at your problems as they are, we can't even start the meditation practice. I mean, we can't even begin the process, let alone get to the conclusion. Can you gain benefit from meditation? But yes, but the idea that you could progress in meditation using avoiding your these very states that we're talking about, it shows a misunderstanding of meditation, which is reasonable. Most people don't understand most people in this world who have heard the word meditation before don't understand meditation in the same way that we do, that I do, that our tradition does. For most people, meditation is an escape. It's a means of entering into a pleasant state, a peaceful state, mostly understood to become permanent. Eventually, somehow, this state can be prolonged to the point that it is constant. But that's not how it works. It's not constant. It's not eternal. It's temporary. That type of meditation can never be the solution because it's not permanent. So that type of meditation, sure, it's fine because you're just covering up your emotions anyway. You're transcending them. This meditation doesn't do that. It's all about dealing with these things that you're covering up with this medication. The medication doesn't solve your problems. It doesn't even directly address them. It just floods your bloodstream with serotonin, as far as I understand. For the most part, it's usually about keeping the serotonin in the bloodstream or something like that. It's called SRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Keeps the serotonin in the bloodstream, I think, something like that. Keeps the serotonin somewhere, usually serotonin, because serotonin feels good. Which, has nothing to do with the actual problem, but you're drugging yourself, for the most part. And there's all these awful side effects, and then, there's all these, it's designer drugs, because I made one drug, well, you can't copy me, so you make your drug, and it works a little bit differently. And then putting all that, that's a whole other issue in and of itself, is how these drugs are imperfect. But even if it's a perfect drug that represses the problem, what are you doing? Why are you meditating then? What's going to be the benefit of meditating if you're avoiding that elephant in the room? It's like there's an elephant in your living room, and you're looking around, trying to clean your room, wondering why there's crap all over the place. Why does my house smell like an elephant? Blaming other people, cleaning up, picking up the broken dishes, all the while, not paying any attention to the big elephant in the middle of your floor. Anyway, that's a bit of a rant. I hope that I'm not closed-minded. I'm open to discussion, but I'm fairly well established in the view that it's not going to work. I've had meditators who are on medication before, and I've seen what it is. It's not really productive. It's not to say, I don't want to discourage those of you who are on medication. Sure, practice this meditation, but you should understand that the end game is giving up your medication, which I think most people do, but it's a very much a part of the process. To begin on the path, you have to begin by giving up your medication. There's no other way, I think. It's not even to say that you couldn't be on it, but the desire to take it is the wrong intention. When the problem comes up, or when you refer to your problems, your mental problems, if your answer is taking medication, you're not even in the right frame of mind. That's the idea. Is it good to hear a sermon or read the Dhamma before meditation? I would say it's better to do it the other way. I have noticed that the mind does not wander a lot when I do that. That's true. Reading sermons, reading discourses can give you saddha. But if you want real understanding, it's better to meditate first. What you're talking about is most likely saddha. Saddha confidence makes you, it composes the mind. There's a good argument. Good before, good after. Do you want to really understand? I guess either way, it's important to be both. If you're not meditating, the Dhamma will be very difficult to understand and easy to misunderstand. I would say it's not so much before or after, it's along with. Are you meditating? If you're not meditating, study will be useless. Study before and study after, I guess. The answer. Is it okay to have a blog describing one's personal abuse story at the hands of others as a means to help oneself and other victims of abuse? Yeah, the whole idea there is of coming clean and accepting, which is very, very much a part of the practice. So, but it's a mechanical, it's an artificial means. You're not actually dealing with it. You're just writing, but writing is an indirect way of helping you to come to terms. What are we doing here? We're just reminding ourselves of the reality. So when you write out something that actually happened to you, That's in a sort of a roundabout way doing the same thing. It's much more indirect, but it has the same sort of general effect of coming to terms with reality. I mean, the alternative is denying it happened, right? Some people actually repress their memories or are in denial. Many more people just avoid it and try to not think about it. So writing about it is a great way to help you come to deal with it, to come to terms with it. Sounds like a good thing. I mean, what you don't want is for that to be your answer, because it's not an answer. But is it okay? Yeah, I think that's great. Talking about things that have happened is great. But within reason, you could probably find some reasons not to say certain things. You know, maybe if you write about graphic abuse, right? If you detail graphic abuse, it can be problematic for some people. It can be a trigger for some people. So things like that. But in general, writing a diary about your own experiences, I think as a Buddhist, is probably a really good thing. Writing about things that are hard for you to come to terms with. But what you don't want is for that to be the answer, sort of a crutch, where you write about everything, and you write always about it. Don't expect it to solve things. There's no solution, there's no trick. You can't find another way out besides coming to see it clearly. Uh-oh, here we go. I'm gonna have a debate here. Are you suggesting that someone who uses antidepressants to avoid crippling depression cannot meditate with the intention to reach enlightenment? I'm not saying they can't meditate. I'm saying they probably won't reach enlightenment on the antidepressants. But yes, I mean, you're expressing it quite clearly, is that they're avoiding the depression, which is what the meditation is trying to come to terms with. If you're avoiding it, then how are you going to come to terms with it? That's the object. You see, this isn't meditation to find peace and peaceful state. It's meditation to learn about your mind, your depression. That's the object of meditation. So if you're avoiding it, you've hit the nail on the head. That's why it doesn't work. I know people react to this quite strongly. This isn't the first time we've had this argument. There was another guy who wanted to come, and he got very upset at me because it's not. And I want to qualify that. You're welcome even to come here to meditate. You're welcome to. We're talking about maybe taking an online course. Maybe that's a good happy medium. But the online courses are also designed to take you to enlightenment. So I'm not yet convinced that it's such a great fit for someone who's taking medication, because you're avoiding, you're taking it to avoid your problem. I guess the thing is, it feels exclusionary, but it only feels that way because people don't understand meditation, understand what we're teaching here. It's not just meditation. If you want a definition of what we're doing in these courses, it's dealing with our mental issues. We all have mental illness. That's what we're dealing with. That's what we're looking at. That's the object of our meditation. So if your practice is to avoid it through whatever means, then you're not doing what we're doing. It's as simple as that. It's not a judgment thing. It's not. I think that's the thing. People feel like they're being judged. Oh no, you're hopeless, kind of we're talking about, right? No, I'm not being judged. It's just an understanding of what the meditation process is.
Did you see an incremental approach at all for someone who is on medication?
I know we talked about that. I mean, sure, and that's what I was saying, is people can come and meditate, but at the very least, the answer is it's because of how intensive the courses are. These courses are an intense, direct path to enlightenment, is the idea, you know. So if you want an incremental approach, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's how I would recommend it, is that you slowly begin to practice meditation, but it has to be coupled with a slow decrease in medication. I know you said I can't tell people to, and I can't tell people to go off their medication, but you have to understand that that's the end game. Why are you practicing this? So that you can eventually stop taking your medication directly. It's not an indirect, like, oh, once I get really progressed here, get really far in the meditation, I won't need my medication anymore. It's not even like that. The only way to progress is to slowly begin to directly approach and directly face your problems. So yeah, I mean, it is, for all of us, it's gradual, but you have to understand that that's the practice. So for someone who's on that sort of medication, I would encourage them to, no, I can't encourage them, right? I would have them understand that to progress in this practice, you have to find a way to get off them. You have to find a way. I mean, the meditation will help you get off of it, but you have to understand that. If your idea is, no, I'm going to take this medication and practice insight meditation, I would argue it's not possible. It's not possible, it's very difficult. Highly unlikely that you're going to progress, simply because it's opposing mind states. Your intention to avoid and your intention to face. I think that's clear, if not appealing or pleasing, if not acceptable.
Ideally, maybe a person themselves, through their meditation practice, would come to the point that it was, their decision, rather than, my teacher told me I had to.
I understand that. I mean, it's a nice idea, but the only problem I have is that it doesn't, like, because I've had meditators like this, people are on medication, and everyone's different, of course, but many people are comfortable taking their medication and are able to meditate, but they don't get results. So they may not come to that realization. I'm not saying that these people are hopeless. I'm saying it's not clear to these people, and they've never been told, and there's never been, and I guess this ultimatum has never been put. You see, if you're not ever challenged into giving it up, take it like, I don't want to sound like judgmental, but so understand, this is an extreme case, but take someone who is like a drug addict, or anything that we use as a safety blanket. If you tell someone to give it up, it's a threat. You are a threat to them. I think you could argue that this is the reaction, why we're getting such a strong reaction, because these people are comfortable with these things. It's a safety blanket. You tell anyone to give up something that's a source of comfort for them. And you were saying this, I think, right? This is what you were saying. That's, you're the threat. I'm no longer the support. And I think what I was going to say when you were talking about that is, it's not an easy decision to come to these drugs. So not only is it something that's comfort, part of their comfort zone, but it's also something that people don't come to lightly. So once you get on board with taking the medication, it's that much stronger. You feel backed into a corner. You have to support it. Rather than just being something you'd say, oh, okay, yeah, I won't take it. But now you've committed to doing something serious. And once you commit to it, the mind that commits to something that's fairly significant can be stubborn. This is like this whole, I don't know what it is, but why people feel threatened anyway, because it's a very, very significant thing that they're doing. And it strikes close to home. If you tell someone, need to go off their medication, for example, if you were to say that, it's easily interpreted as a criticism. You know, you are mentally, you know, it hits that nerve, yeah, easily. I think there's something wrong with you, that kind of thing.
As well as their doctor and their treatment, society.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of support for
And you come to the idea that it's okay, it's normal, because it is normal. Everyone's taking these silly drugs. I have to be on the other side of the fence. It's not normal, it's not right, it's not the answer, not even much of a solution. Do some people survive through it, get better from it? Sure. I think there's an argument to be made for it to be a useful crutch for some people. Yeah, useful crutch. I'm not even convinced. A crutch, a means of not killing yourself. Yes, understand. So useful. Some people without these drugs might kill themselves, and because they don't kill themselves, later on they're able to deal with their problems and they grow up. Or, they grow out of these problems. There I was, kind of judging. I didn't mean to say it like that. I apologize. Not grow up, but they outgrow. That was just wrong phrasing. I don't really believe that it's immaturity or something. I apologize for saying that. But it's kind of the words that we use because we're all growing, right? Spiritual growth. So that's all that I meant. Because I was thinking of a friend of mine. I was with her. We had these interesting discussions. She was on drugs. She was on medication for clinical depression, and we're both teenagers, and I was like, I've been depressed since I was 8, 6. I don't know. I was always depressed when I was a kid. I never took medication. So we had these kind of arguments about it because I'm sure I would have been given similar medication to her, but she's outgrown it. She's now married. I haven't seen her in many years, but really good person. But she had mental problems. I mean, we all do. But she was really pretty strong. It was hard to deal with. But really sensitive, nice, loving person. Really good person. And so that's what I meant by grow out of it or grow up, because she really did. She was able to. She had her head on straight. She just had strong emotions, basically, and that's really what I would say is her emotions were quite strong, and as a result, she couldn't deal with them, and her parents put her on this medication. It didn't really help her. It made her feel awful, and eventually her head was on straight, so she knew she had to get off it, and she got off it. So I mean that's I think a success story as far as the medication goes. I'm not trying to demonize these things. I don't think they're the real demon, but you have to go through that. If that's your plan, then go through it. And if eventually you can get off these drugs, I think the problem now is that people feel that they're just going to take these drugs for the rest of their life. Well, fine, but that's going to get in the way of your meditation. There's no way around that. That's the real problem, I think. I'm not Buddha. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. The Buddha didn't give clear instruction on this, so you can say I'm wrong. I don't mind. I might very well be wrong. But I'm pretty set in this sort of line of thought. So if you think that's closed-minded, that's fine too. Call me a jerk. Call me a narrow-minded imbecile.
I don't think you stand alone in this boundary, because most applications for things like meditation courses ask about.
Is it? Well, this woman today, we shouldn't be too much about confidential information, but this person today was saying that the doctors were on their side. Well, of course, the doctors were, friends were.
Right,
but
the doctors wouldn't be aware of the content of the course.
Sure, but they've got to be aware of meditation courses. They've got to have.
No, because most people, when they think of meditation, they think of the tranquility.
Yeah, that's it. No. Yeah, she was going to get her doctor to write me a note. Her doctor was going to write me a note explaining things to me.
No, I think it would be interesting.
I would have liked to read that. No, that would have been, in a real way, I really would have been interested to hear what the doctor had to say.
But similar courses they're offered by other organizations, I believe.
Mm. Sure, I mean, take Goenka, I'm sure. What do they do?
They ask about.
Okay, and if you're on medication?
I don't know what the response would be, but they definitely ask about it.
Not that we really care. They're not us. But no, it would be interesting to know what the Goenka group does, at least sort of in a passing sense. Oh, I think we're getting, let's see what the comments are on this. During my meditation, I have vision of symmetrical shapes. What is it? Is it common? Is it just my mental projection? It's an image. You're seeing something. You know what that means? That means you should say to yourself, seeing, seeing. Nanimita gahi nanum yanjana gahi. Don't worry about what it is, the details, the signs, the particulars. It's seeing. The Buddha said, deep te deep tamatang bhavisati. When you see, let it just be seen. Even with your eyes closed, it's just seeing. That's what that is. It's, you know what else it is? It's impermanent, it's unsatisfying, and it's uncontrollable. It's not worth clinging to. If you meditate on it, you'll see that. Once you see that, you'll let go of it. Once you let go of it, you'll be free. Once you're free, you'll say, I'm free. Nothing more to do. What about someone with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder? Shouldn't they take medication? Especially since those disorders can be very biologically based. I would argue they shouldn't. You know, the reason why we have to take medication is because we have to survive in a society that expects it. What did they do before there was medication? Did they die? You know, maybe they killed themselves, but some people say that it's all just a modern thing, you know. We are just not able to deal with these things anymore. Schizophrenia, I think, is a good one. I'd really love to have, and it would have to probably be in Asia where there are no laws and liabilities, but to have a meditator who is a schizophrenic and help them through it, you know, without any medication. If we could both survive that ordeal, I think it would be great. The schizophrenia is just hallucinations. The schizophrenics hallucinate, as I understand, and the problem is they react to the hallucinations. I was talking to a schizophrenic in Mississauga on Wesak, and actually talked to him about coming to meditate with me. He said he would. He said he would contact me. Still hasn't, but he didn't believe I could help him. So that's probably why he hasn't contacted me. Because he says he can't avoid getting paranoid about his hallucinations. The paranoia is automatic, he said. So, difference of opinion. We argued a little bit about it. I think he was impressed with what I was saying, but he was skeptical. Bipolar? I mean, bipolar, what does that mean? I mean, maybe there's some serious bipolar that is organic. There may even be problems with the brain, you know. Brains can be different. So you have a brain that's problematic, but it's still just chemicals. It's not the paranoia. Even thoughts, you know, some people have thoughts like, I want to kill my mother and father. Suppose you have this thought, I want to kill my mother and father. That would stress most people out to no end, right? And they would think they're crazy, right? But that's the problem, you see, it's just a thought. The thought, I want to kill my mother and father, it's not the desire to kill your mother and father. You don't have to be afraid of that thought. It's just a thought. Doesn't mean you're going to get up in the middle of the night and kill your parents. It means you had a silly thought. But we do this with everything, right? We have thoughts and we feel guilty about them. The mind tricks us in this way. The mind not even tricks us. The mind is just crazy. The more you don't want to think a thought, guess what, right? The more you think it. It's funny how that happens. Because you're giving power to it. You're emphasizing that thought by suppressing it, by rejecting it. And the funny thing is that the mind responds by bringing that thought up again and again at the most inopportune times. That's how insanity occurs. That's how in an oversimplified way, that's how people go crazy. Is they drive themselves crazy rather than just seeing things as they are. So what is biology based is really chemicals. It's not your reactions. That's our claim. In relation with antidepressants, do you see any conflict between meditation and using something like ayahuasca as two tools to understand and heal your depression? Look, there's only one tool that allows you to create understanding. It's not ayahuasca. It's mindfulness. It's sati. There's only one tool. It's the mind. Nothing physical will cultivate understanding. Now, what something like ayahuasca might do is provide you with experiences that force you to give up beliefs. So that's good. It might do even more. I'm not really clear on DMT, right? Or DHT or whatever it's called. What it does. My uncle was talking a lot about this and how you shoot off into the stratosphere and you end up being in other places and it opens your mind. Yeah, okay. You could argue that all of that's good. But let's be clear that that's not a tool it's not a tool for understanding. And this is, so many of these solutions or tools come simply from a misunderstanding of what meditation is. Meditation is very simple, very direct, and very much incompatible with other tools. So ayahuasca should not have any part in your meditation practice. If you want to do it to sort of open your mind or whatever, okay. You could argue that that's helpful. It's only helpful before you meditate. During the time you're meditating, it should have nothing to do with it. What you want in meditation is the most ordinary, unadulterated state possible. You want the most boring, ordinary you state possible. You don't want to influence, affect, fix, control, regulate your experience at all. You want the unadulterated version, the unabridged, the uncensored version of your mind. That's what you want. No additives, no artifices, no crutches, just you and mindfulness. You, yourself, and your mind. That's all you want. That's the hardest thing, to not fix, to not control, to not regulate, and to deal with that unregulated mind, the insanity of the mind. You feel like you're going insane sometimes. But you're not. It's not dangerous. It's just allowing that insanity that's inside to work itself out without judging it, without reacting to it, without making it worse. Suppressing it only makes it worse. A lot of people doing that. Conflict, I don't know. As I said, don't do it while you're meditating. But for people who have done it, I don't know. I don't really know what effect, if it has long-term effect on the brain, that can be problematic, but only in a general sense. As long as you stop before you start meditating. But don't do it while you're meditating. Sorry. I know that's a problem. People like to take drugs when they meditate. Misunderstanding. Not misunderstanding, but different understanding of meditation. You can't practice this meditation if you're intent upon taking drugs. How is the story about the man who was drunk for a week and then became enlightened different from someone taking medication? Right, so it's not the taking the medication, it's the intent to take the medication. You're taking the medication to avoid the problem. This guy was drunk and then all he wanted was to be sober. His whole intention, that's a good question. His whole intention was to be sober. There's a little bit of commentary on that story as well, like he sobered up, right? There's some kind of magic involved, that because of the power of his grief and because of the power of his intention and the power of the Buddha, he was magically sober all of a sudden. I think there's some commentary that says to that extent. But it has to be said, a person who is drunk, if they suddenly become desirous of becoming enlightened, you could argue that they no longer want to avoid the problem. They no longer want to drown themselves in alcohol. He wasn't avoiding a problem, but he was cultivating pleasure. He was trying to fix his mind, but through alcohol. Alcohol is a great way to make things seem happy all the time. But when this dancer died, his favorite dancer woman, or he was in love with her maybe, suddenly died. It just it just woke him up, and he realized that this was ridiculous what he was doing. So it's the view, you see. It's about the difference between the mind and the body. Can you meditate on antidepressants? Oh, probably. But what is your mind? What is your intention? Is your intention to approach the depression, or is it your intention to avoid it? Are you ready to experience things as they are? Because taking the medication is antithetical to that. You're taking the medication to avoid it. Make it easy. Anything that makes your meditation easy is a sign that you're not ready to meditate. And you're avoiding the problem. Okay, lots of questions, but we're way over an hour, so I'm going to have to cut it off here. I'll cut it off at the last question, and we're going to do what do you call a shotgun round, I think it's called, where suddenly we do everything quickly. So brief answers here. If the answers don't suffice from here on in, you'll have to ask it again tomorrow. Coincidence. My question is it ignorant to wait for my karma to manifest or strive towards it? You shouldn't worry about the past or the future, just live in the present. There's my answer. Sanka says drinking was only holding him back. He was ready to become enlightened. Yeah, you see, commentary has a lot of things to say about those stories. Context. These stories, and that's important. I mean, regardless of whether you believe what the commentary has to say, context is important. Just because it worked once, there's a lot of context involved with those stories. Sometimes I find myself in an inner mood of sadness. If I just try to overcome the mood, any tips? Meditate. Read my book on how to meditate. I meditated for a while. I get upset. Question everything so much. When you get upset. I remember seeing it, how silly it was. I know there's just a feeling I'm not going to cling to it. Is this the feeling? No, that's a good sign. It's a sign that you're on your way. But enlightenment is much more profound. Enlightenment is the cessation of suffering. It's an experience that changes you changes you forever. Okay, that's all for tonight. If you are unsatisfied with the answers, you're welcome to ask them tomorrow. You're welcome to go and write scathing comments on my YouTube videos. You're welcome to send me scathing emails. It's all good. You're welcome to go meditate on how awful a person I am. But most of all, you're just welcome to continue meditating. So have a good night, everyone. See you all tomorrow.